Hey you guys, Amber Wick here, and tonight I have this little one with me, Mox. Hi. Well, it's the 4th of July, so happy 4th of July. This one and Cece are not really excited about the fireworks, so I thought she could sit on my lap. But then since she's sitting on my lap, I thought I would tell the Moxie story. Okay, so I had previously referred to February 10th. And February 10th was the day that Jason and I were flying home from that Minnesota event, and I found that like lump in my armpit. February 10th is also the day, okay, that we land, and my parents were watching the dogs, and my mom says, Mox flew up like 14 times last night. We're not sure why. She just really didn't eat anything today. Okay, so I'll summarize, right? We bring her to the doctor, that's Sunday. We bring her to the doctor on Tuesday. The doctor runs all these tests. They're like, well, she's got some elevated liver enzymes, but let's just give her some anti-nausea meds and let's see if we can get her eating. Okay, didn't work. So Thursday, I bring her back in. She hasn't eaten now since Saturday. Super lethargic. They give her like x-rays. I'm totally thinking she has like a blockage in her digestive tract because we give them like these bully sticks. No, none of that. So we have a different vet on Thursday. She was awesome, and she says like, okay, do you have any of those like orange reddish seed things in your yard? Well, we have, our neighbors have like, it looks like an orange tree, but it's not. They're like little things, okay? And I was like, well, so I'm just grabbing this little orange thing. Well, she goes into the back room, she comes out and she's like, okay, does it look like this or this? Okay, like an orange or like a little maroon red seed. I'm like, no. And then she's like, do you have any like Sago palm trees in your yard? And I was like, well, I have palm trees. Like I have 3, I go, I have like tall palm trees in my yard. She's like, no, like a palm tree that sits on the ground. I'm like, no, I don't have any of those. She's like, okay. And then she brings the seed in. She goes, anything like this? And I take a picture, I send it to Jason, and I said, was Mox chewing on this? Because my mom kept saying, she was chewing on something on the side of the yard over by Bo and Jamie's house, but I don't know what it is. So we now know she was chewing on a Sago palm seed, which are deathly poisonous. So you guys, if you have pets, will you please look this up? Look up Sago palm tree. And please, if you guys have one and you have dogs, they love to chew on the seeds. It like liver shutdown, okay? So now it's like 5 days. The doctor that was great, she's like, okay, she needs to be admitted to an emergency hospital. So I'm like, okay. So she's like, I mean, she didn't say this is like deathly, but then of course I'm like a Google master, right? So I'm like, oh, this is deathly. So she's like, well, you could go over to this city, you could do this. I go, no, just tell me where to go. She's like, okay, so drive to Pensacola. I'm like, okay, so we drive to Pensacola. We admit her. She's in this Pensacola emergency vet hospital clinic. She's the cutest thing ever, though. Look at her. Aren't you cute? Look at you. Aren't you cute? She's a King Charles Cavalier, and she's 1, and she totally lives up to her name, which is Moxie. Hey, Jessica, how are you? Okay, so we're there for 5 days. This is where I lose it and have no intuition. I'm just telling you guys, I'll lose it. Like Jason said, Jason and I have been married 20 years. He goes, I don't think I've ever seen you like that. He was telling like our friend Chad, and I was telling our friend Kelly. Jason's like, I've never seen her like this. And I don't know what it was, you guys, but my dad was the only one that was like, she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. I was like, okay. But I had no intuition. I know Mox is so cute, isn't she? You guys, it was the weirdest thing. I was so rabbit hole, like my mind had gone so far down the fact that my dog ate a palm sago seed and she's gonna die. Isn't that horrible? And then my friend Kelly's like, Amber, what you put out you attract. She's only feeding off of your energy. And then you couldn't see her. Like you could go into this vet hospital and see her for like 15 minutes twice a day, but like she needed to be hooked up on stuff. And then I'm calling, like, is she eating? Is she drinking? Okay, so long story short, after 5 or 6 days, her liver enzymes and all of her blood work has stabilized. It's not getting a ton better, you guys, but it's not getting worse, okay? So I'm like, okay, great. So this is the first, like, it's 5 or 6 days in. This is the first, like, my first little inkling of like, okay, let's take her home. Like, she doesn't need to be here anymore. There's nothing else they can do. They were awesome, but there's nothing else they can do. So we bring her home. She throws up about 6 times a day, every day, you guys. We feed her in very tiny little meals. Her poor little liver is just shot. And Jason and I have a trip to go to Africa for 3 weeks. Like this is like February 10th, and we're supposed to leave March 15th, okay? So we're bringing her every week, and we're getting her blood work, and she's getting slowly better, but they just kept saying, she's not out of the woods, she's not out of the woods, she's not out of the woods. I'm like, okay. So the friend of ours that stayed with the dogs while we were in Africa is a really great friend of ours. She knows the dogs. She knows I'm fanatical about, making sure the dog lives. Okay, so I don't know why I did this, you guys, but like the Thursday or Friday before we left to go to Africa, they want to do her blood work and they want to do this special like bile acid liver test, okay? So I get a phone call Monday night in Africa, and it's like 11 a.m. here, and it's the vet. They're like, Amber, it's an emergency. I'm like, okay, it's an emergency? They're like, it's an emergency. You need to get her an ultrasound and a CAT scan and I don't know what I'm not even probably saying the right thing. Right away. So of course, you guys, I lose it again. I was like, okay, because I'm not here, right? So I kind of lose it. I can't connect. Does that make sense? Like I have no intuition. I'm halfway across the world. I can't get tuned in. I don't know what's the right thing for her to do. But he's like, no, this is an emergency. I'm like, okay, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Can I wait 2 weeks? He's like, no. So our friend Lauren, our assistant, my parents, they're all calling to try and get her in for like an emergency, whatever she needs. I can't remember what she needed. Okay. So 4 days later, they get her in. My parents are amazing. They come down here, pick her up. They drive her 3 hours away, spend the night over there. But this is also an emergency hospital, okay? So this emergency hospital also is like, oh, we can't get her in tonight, but she can't eat. And she was barely eating, you guys. So she was losing weight. We're trying to keep her alive. So they don't feed her that night. Then they can't get her in the next day. Then they run some tests, but they don't run the CAT scan. So I'm on FaceTime, you guys. My parents are holding the dog at the vet, okay? And this is in Tallahassee. I'm on FaceTime in South Africa. It's Jason, myself, Augie, and then one of our business partners, Sean. And this vet I have 5 pages of notes of everything that's wrong with her. Like she's got this, and then what about this, and what about this, and then, you guys, and I'm like, He says, and this is what he says. And so what we want to do is we want to do surgery, and we want to biopsy her liver, and and I was like, and they wanted to like do it the next day. And I was like, okay. So I was like, well, let me just think about it. My parents were going to spend the night with her in Tallahassee. So it's like 2 a.m, you guys, and I call, they're friends of ours. He's our chiropractor, and she's my yoga instructor. But I call Bart, and he's like, they're kind of out there, right? They're my kind of people, right? They're out there with nutrition. They have 4 dogs, and I'm like, okay, Bart, and I kept calling Lauren, who's watching the dog, and I was like, is she okay? And she's like, Amber, she's not worse. I'm like, okay, and Bart's like, okay. He's like, get it together. Here's the deal. She's poisoned. I'm like, okay. She ate a poisonous seed. She was about to die. She's poisoned. I'm like, got it. He goes, she's a wreck. I'm like, got it. He goes, this vet has not seen her for the last 6 weeks. So she's gotten better over the last 6 weeks, Sam. He just saw her for the first time today. I'm like, okay. He goes, she's a wreck. It's going to take like a year. You didn't expect the vet to get on the phone and say, like she's miraculously healed. I'm like, no. He's like, Amber, do not let them do surgery on her. She's already fragile and frail. Don't let them. And I was feeling it anyway, you guys. I was like, okay, cut her open. She's already weak. She's barely eating. She's just so frail, And I was like, and we were just starting to get a little bit of wins. Like, oh, she was going from throwing up 6 times a day to 2 times a day. Like I would touch base with Lauren when we were in South Africa. And Lauren's like, she only threw up 2 times today. I'm like, yes. And it was like a big win. Okay, so we were starting to feel, like a little bit positive and hopeful. And then this vet, he was awesome actually, right? And it's his job. But it's just so interesting because like as I was starting to feel hopeful, okay, and I'd tap in a little bit more, like intuitively, then even though that I've received the phone call, the FaceTime from the vet in Tallahassee, it's almost like I knew. He was like, this and surgery and that and this, and we might have to reroute a shunt. She might have a shunt, but we could go in and surgically reroute it. And I was just like, I just wasn't feeling it, you guys. I wasn't feeling it. Like the first day I had to run her over to Pensacola to the emergency vet. And then by the time I talked to Bart was like, Amber, have your parents come. I said, okay. He goes, you can do the CAT scan. It's going to cost you $1,000. And you know what's going to come back? It's going to come back and tell you she's really sick. He goes, here's the deal. The dog is sick. I'm like, okay, the dog is sick. You're right. The dog is sick. So but I call my parents. I go, Mom, Dad, just go pick her up. And this is late at night, you guys. I'm like, Mom, just go pick her up the next day. No CAT scan, nothing. Pick her up, feed her. The poor little thing had not eaten. Bring her home. And my parents were awesome. They go the next morning, and I think the vet was like, thinking that we were like neglecting the dog. My parents were like, okay, listen here. There is nothing that this dog does not get neglected, right? So the vet was like, my parents were like, no, the dog will get care. So you guys, she's not home free. She's probably like 75% home free, but there she is, okay? But this was just a roller coaster of intuition for me. This is what I would say. Initially, I knew we had to get her somewhere fast, okay? Then over the course of those 2, 3, 4, 5 days, when you just, like, can you, like when you're watching your dog potentially die, does that make sense? I mean, it was such a practice, you guys, of like breath, breathing. When I'm in her presence, I was so joyful and happy because I knew she was feeding off of my energy. But then I'd get back to, like, we're staying in our motorhome in Pensacola at that time. I'd just get back to the motorhome and I would like bawl, and Kelly would be like, that's okay, but you get it together when you're in front of her because she feeds off of your energy. I'm like, okay. So, and then I was feeling good, right? And then I get the phone call in South Africa. It was just this roller coaster of not only emotions, but I also just noticed that as my emotions would roller coaster, I would lose my intuition too. So I think the practice is, you guys, that we're all gonna have roller coaster emotions. Hi, Michelle, how are you, girl? You know, our whole life. It's like, how can we do our best to even stay connected? However you guys do that, right? Prayer, meditation, yoga, breath work, however you guys do that, even in heightened of emotion. And she's gonna make it. I don't know, that little liver is still a little bit of, you know, we still get our blood work done. And that little liver is, you know, in and out. But she doesn't throw up. She's got energy like, you know, a puppy. She just does this little, like, if you guys have ever had a dog that had palm sago, she just does this like kind of gag reflex every once in a while, but she hasn't thrown up for like 2 months, so score.